Welcome to Mainland, your local regional television station. I'm Chrissy Small, and some of the stories coming up in today's news: Code of Conduct for Councils, Disaster Plan in Motion, Overseas Travel Concerns, and more. What does Council's Code of Conduct really mean for freedom of speech? Mainland, as a news organisation, has noticed over the last few years how inaccessible council officers have become when trying to find some answers which could be a result of a change in Council's Code of Conduct. Tania Omar spoke with Dr. Catherine Strong of Massey University's Business School, whose speciality is journalism, particularly around the topic of media freedom. Dr. Strong's academic paper around controversial wording in local governments' codes of conduct will be published later this year in the Australian Journalism Review. Well, thank you, Kathy, for joining us today. I appreciate your time. And what exactly is the Code of Conduct for councils?
Well, by law, every council has to have a code of conduct, and the Auditor General's office actually monitors this. This has been in existence since about 2002, this requirement. But the only thing it says is it has to have a code of conduct. Nothing about what has to be in it, what sections, what it covers, or anything. And a code of conduct is just an agreed agreement on how they deal with each other, how they deal with staff, how they conduct themselves as elected officials. Some code of conducts have gone further, and they cover staff or others in council, but this is for elected members.
And so what's motivated you to do the research around these codes of conduct?
Well, the interesting thing is that the code of conduct, most of them are about 4,000 words long, so they're quite lengthy, and they can be a bit dense. But what I was tipped off that a council was controlling their councillors, their elected members, by the code of conduct. They actually said, we can control them talking to the media through our code of conduct, which was really a surprise to me. So when I looked at it, yep, sure enough, there was a little phrase that basically said elected members couldn't criticize council in the media. And so, of course, I looked at all councils up and down the country and to see what this is. And most councils have used the template that's been given to them by the local government New Zealand Association, which basically says we have a free media, that elected members, of course, can talk to the media because in their capacity. Just make sure that they identify what's a personal opinion and what's a council opinion. However, I found 10 councils that had inserted a little phrase that said their elected officials cannot criticize council or any of its policies when talking to the media. To me, that's so disturbing, because we live in a free a democracy, and the elected officials of all people are not working for council. They're working for the residents or the public. So they should be able to speak freely about anything.
I noticed in your research paper that you mention the phraseology and say that it's similar to those used in countries of the Middle East that do not offer individual and political freedom. Can you elaborate on this?
Well, there's a really interesting thing on here, is that New Zealand is one of the most free media in the world, and it's always had that reputation. We are a beacon of free media, and one of them is that we have got really, really tight rules that make sure that people cannot control the media. We've got the Official Information Act, we have got the Open Meeting Act. The media has a lot of freedom to find out information that affects the public. However, there's another way of controlling it, and that's to control the source, to make it so that people can't talk to the media. And that's what I experienced. I worked 3.5 years in the Middle East, and they have the tightest media there. They really control it. And one of the things is that in a lot of the countries there, their laws quite clearly say no one can criticize the rulers. No one can criticize the rulers' families or what they do. And and the media know if they cross that line, well, they'll be out of business. So, and it's the same, don't criticize authority. So it's the same sort of phraseology that I see is creeping into some of these councils.
Through your research, is this beginning to affect the role of city councillors? Are we beginning to see a tightening of freedom of media here between local government and the public?
I can see that. I can see that's starting to come in, and some mayors who have adopted this disturbing terminology have said no, our people still speak out quite widely and criticize it, but we haven't done the really deep research yet, and it's sort of difficult. Is that if they didn't have those restrictions, would they speak out even freer? Because what they do is that the councils have the right to gag elected officials, which means that, and you can see it a lot in some councils, the councillors become PR agents for their council. They're only publicizing good things. They're almost like puppets for them. Whereas in fact, as the decision makers representing the residents, the public, they should look at things with a critical eye.
With Dr. Strong's research being made public, perhaps we will see attention being drawn to the obstructive wording used around Nelson City Council's Code of Conduct with the media. We went to Nelson and asked people what their experience has been with accessing individuals at City Council.
The processes of council, when you're trying to get hold of people in the departments, what is your opinion of it?
Well, I think it's going to take a long time. I've been waiting a long time for the council to be proactive about the situation that they created in the first place. So I guess everybody else has got to wait their turn too.
I've never had any problem.
Not in this region, but I've only been here for a small number of years. But in other regions, it's just diabolical trying to get through local bureaucratic bullshit just to get a yes or a no from someone and to get a straight answer.
No, they're not accessible.
What's your experience?
Well, I've emailed certain city councils about certain issues, and they don't always reply to them, and they're not actually as accessible as they should be, considering we pay their wages.
The Institute of Geological and Nuclear Sciences, now known as GNS Science, in conjunction with Tasman District and Nelson City Councils, have developed a series of tsunami evacuation maps. These maps have been created following research commissioned by both Tasman and Nelson City Councils with GNS Science in 2014, which unsurprisingly reveals that all low-lying areas across the region would be at risk in a natural event such as tsunami. Based on information supplied from this research, Nelson's Tasman Civil Defence and Emergency Management Group have been working on an evacuation plan for the region. The areas vulnerable to causing possible tsunami are as follows.
A tsunami approaching New Zealand from the east will still make its way through the Cook Strait to Tasman and Golden Bay, however its size will be diminished. Tasman and Golden Bay are subject to tsunami hazards from various local, regional and distant sources. Local sources are where a tsunami will arrive on shore within 1 hour, while a regional source is where a tsunami has a 1 to 3 hour travel time. A distant tsunami has a travel time of greater than 3 hours. Local sources that could impact Tasman Bay and Golden Bay include the offshore extension of the Waimea Fault and other undersea faults in the Taranaki Bight and Cook Strait. Regional sources include the Hikurangi and Paisaka trenches and offshore faults of Wellington and Marlborough. Distant sources include tectonic subduction zones around the Pacific Rim from South America through to Alaska and Japan, through to the Solomon Islands. The Kermadec-Tonga Trench, although closer than the Pacific Rim, is also a distant source of tsunami for Tasman and Golden Bays.
Public risk management meetings are being held in Motueka, Kaiteriteri, Mapua, Richmond and Nelson, which will kick off in Motueka Tuesday this week to identify evacuation routes, signage and public alerting options in the event of a natural disaster. Nelson Tasman's CDEM Group Controller Roger Ball was asked by me how people can access the information for evacuation and why people should go to the meetings. Roger, what are the chances of a tsunami hitting our region?
Well, compared to other parts of New Zealand, the tsunami risk for the Nelson-Tasman region is not as pronounced, but we still do have a tsunami risk, and we know that from the historical record. There is evidence in our coastline of significant tsunamis in the past. And we know from the events in the Indian Ocean and in Japan in recent years that this is something we need to pay attention to. So we've got some new information from GNS now, and it's not, of course, possible to predict the future, but what we've done is we've modelled some evacuation maps based on some quite low probability events over, say, 1 in 500 year events or 1 in 2,500 year event, and those longer run events are based on a maximum credible wave coming ashore and having a look to see what that would mean for us. So we're talking about low probability events, but the consequence, obviously, for people could be quite high, as we saw in Japan and other places. So that's why we're planning for it.
Right. Now, how can people access the information for evacuation?
The easiest place is on our website. So it's www.nelsontasman.civildefence.co.nz, and we've got the maps there available first of all as an interactive portal. You can just type in a location and go to it, but there's also some PDF maps there which are easy to download, and people can see those, and that's the easiest place for people to see this information.
Okay, now what if, for those illiterate computer people, what can they do?
Sure. Look, if anybody is particularly interested and wants to give us a phone call on 03543 7290, we'll do our best to post something out to you and make that available that way.
That's great. Now, public meetings, of course, they kick off Tuesday today this week. What's the purpose of these meetings, Roger?
Well, the first purpose is really just to let people know about the information that we've now got. The risk isn't any worse, we just understand it better. So the first purpose is just to convey that information. The second part of it is to give people advice on what to do to be prepared. So if we did get an alert, and if the Ministry of Civil Defence was to say to us, look, we need to evacuate the orange zone or stay out of the red zone, we need people to understand what that means and how they can be ready for that.
Okay.
The second part of it, if I may just continue, is also to have a conversation with the community around, okay, so we've got this information, do we need some signage up around in the community to help inform not just residents but also tourists about this hazard and where to go. And for those of your listeners or viewers who travel around New Zealand, this already exists in places around Northland and Gisborne and Canterbury and other places.
Right. Now, Roger, one of the things, we're such a big area of land. I mean, you look at the whole bay, it's a mammoth task to try and keep everyone informed on what's going on. If there was a tsunami alert, people will be out, they're not listening to radios, they're out on the beach or whatever. How are they going to know?
Yes, I mean, that's a perennial problem. I mean, in some ways we're better able to contact people now than what we've ever been able to, in the past because of smartphone technologies and social media. But there's no silver bullet here, and we do rely on media and social media in particular to spread the news, and we rely on people who, if you become aware of a tsunami alert, tell your neighbours, tell your friends, think about the vulnerable people in your street or that you may know, and pass the message along, because exactly as you say, people will have their radios turned off, or they may be asleep, they may be at the beach. So we rely on people transmitting that information to their friends and neighbours.
Right. Now, Roger, we have a great service in our rural fire departments. Now, most of us can hear the sirens go off. Will they be part of it, do you think? Is that another way of letting people know?
No, not really. I mean, we don't have a national siren alerting system in New Zealand. There are some locations in New Zealand where sirens are used, and they're usually not fire sirens. And there are various ways of alerting the public to things. Sirens are regarded as not particularly well, they have some downsides and some significant limitations. And for example, they can't be heard by everybody. Environmental conditions affect them. They're not set up for tsunamis particularly. They're set up to call volunteers to their location. It assumes the power will be on, and it may not be after an earthquake. So we don't want to create a situation where people are dependent upon
an audio
mechanical things. One of the really key messages in this whole process is to alert people to the fact that if you're close to the coastline and you feel the long and strong earthquake, long means longer than a minute, strong means hard to stand up. If you feel it of that intensity, don't wait for any official warning. You need to get out of all evacuation zones immediately. So that's the key public message, and we don't want that to be dependent upon sirens or text alerts or anything else.
Right. So basically, Roger, you're saying if we can feel that intense rolling of the earth, then we know we're in for a big one, possibly. And but if it happens further out, I mean, if something happens over in Taranaki, the basin in Taranaki, we may not feel it.
That's true. There are we break these tsunami risks down into three categories: near source, regional, and distant. And for stuff that's coming at us from a distance, from South America or from the South Pacific, we will have a reasonable amount of time in which to get the word out. For things which are close by, we are relying on the possibility of a felt effect locally. Right. And that's where we've got to educate ourselves and our public around the long and strong earthquake, and if you feel that, you do need to move.
Right. So these meetings are a really good idea for people to try and make the efforts to actually go out there and find out more, really.
Yeah, I mean, it's a really important opportunity. We want people to understand how this sits in the hazardscape as well. It's not the only thing that people need to worry about. There's other natural hazards out there, and there are people-made hazards out there as well, and we're not suggesting that this needs to sit at the top. It needs to sit in the agenda. People need to be informed and prepared, but at the end of the day, most people are going to die very peacefully in their sleep one day in the arms of their families, and are not going to die from a tsunami. So we don't want people to panic about this. We just want them to be better informed. The risk is not worse now than what it was before we had these maps, but we'll be better informed about it, and we'll hopefully know what to do.
Yeah. Thank you very much, Roger. Coming off the back of recent Anzac commemorations, New Zealand and Turkey have shared a pain that ties us together. Many Kiwis travel to Gallipoli each Anzac period. With suicide bombers targeting some tourist hotspots as recently as 2 weeks ago, we asked local tour guide Kanyet on the ground in Turkey his views on travelling to Turkey. He says that travel has been affected, but the perception of danger is increased through social media. His personal opinion from his experience on the ground in Turkey is that it is safe to travel there and no different to other parts of Europe who are also experiencing terrorism. Local Turkish businessman Hakan shared his thoughts around these issues.
I'm in the Nelson CBD with local Turkish Kiwi resident Hakan. And so we thought we'd ask him a few questions about Kiwis travelling to Turkey. What would your advice be, Hakan?
Well, look, I've been here 23 years and love being here. Been hearing a lot of bombing or terrorist attack, being kind of a little bit frightening people. But if you choose the right location and right time, I don't think any problem. So you can always easily travel to Turkey. But I can tell you, going to Istanbul, landing at lots of people done, and then go to normal trek Anzac, and you go to Free Rocks, and come back to Pamukkale, or Old Mediterranean Sea, or even Aegean Sea. Always a good place to go, enjoy yourself, a lots of historic area. So I don't see any problem. Only problem we got, I reckon, is the east. If you go into East Turkey here, all the Iraq, Syria, where's the Israel, all this problem happening. So you keep away from this area, I think you should be fine.
What if you're a novice traveller, you've never travelled overseas, you've just been hearing the news media talking constantly about, I mean, there was a recent bombing in Istanbul and Bursa, some tourist areas. Seriously, are you going to say it's fine to travel there?
Well, it is, as I said, I've been living in that country so long, and before I came here, for us everything normal, and now I've been here 22 years, it is something question marks there. But it is, if you go back today, it is Europe normal to being a lot of people, a lot of drama happening. It could be happening. It could be France, it could be Brussels, which happened, it could be Germany, it could be anywhere. But it's the aiming into Turkey, because issue. But I think that's all aim to try to stop people going to Turkey, or people scared people, try to cause economical force to stop Turkey not growing. So far as I'm concerned, long as you go to right places, a right tour, you'll have a great time in Turkey. No drama there.
And has the effect of terrorism affected your family on the ground in Turkey?
Well, my family is good. Okay, we are based right in the cold place, Knidos, based across Greek islands. Everything is fishing and tourism, which is sailing, yachting, whatever we do, all about the touristic, and there's no problem. Always the people go stay. A lot of people come through from England and Germany or Finland, a lot of people, because of warm and good people, and price is good and clean. So it is always welcoming people, and there's hardly ever problem this area. So I can't see any problem there.
The Met Service has said Nelson and Tasman have increased the sunshine scale of sunshine hours for April, but the rain is coming.
The region has yet again beaten its own sunshine record for April this year, boasting 248 hours of bright sunshine for the month, up from 247.6 in 2012. Met Service meteorologist Georgina Griffiths said that the average temperature was around 1.2 degrees higher than usual, bringing the overall average to 14.4 degrees. Griffiths said that the projected regional temperature is expected to be around 2 degrees above the average of 10.5 degrees. Fruit growers Rod Fry Limited in Motueka said that they've seen a boost in the size of their kiwi fruit crop this season, thanks to a mixture of high rainfall hours as well as increased temperatures. General Manager Jared Fry said that the high sunshine hours were particularly helpful whilst harvesting the apples, and he was hopeful that the weather would last into June to make the end of the kiwi fruit season. Hop growers in the region said that the mixed weather resulted in some loss of crops over the season, but overall there had been an increase in the harvest of 10%. The hop crops responded well to the first 3 major rainfalls in January, which some growers believe saved them from the cool spring and the El Niño conditions experienced up to Christmas last year. The storm at the end of February caused a lot of physical damage to the hops throughout the region, including the collapse of one grower's crop, which was indicative of how heavy the rain and winds really were. The end of the storm did see a number of days of high heats and cold overnight temperatures, which sped up plant maturity rates. Growers are forced to work around the clock to harvest the remainder of the crops before they spoiled. Overcast weather is expected to the region until Thursday the 5th of May, with the possibility of 5 millimetres of rain on forecast for Wednesday the 4th. According to the National Institute of Water and Atmospheric Research Weather Department, sunshine is expected to return to us again from Friday the 6th of May. For Mainland News, I'm Ethan Williams.
After the break, we'll bring you the latest weather update and some events and happenings coming up from around the region.
Why would you want to pay as much as $1,000 for a single bed mattress when you can buy a high quality locally made mattress like this for as little as $220? And a queen size mattress could cost you in excess of $3,000, but at Nelson Beds you could have a mattress like this as low as $425. So why would you go out and spend a fortune on your child's bedroom when you can come to Nelson Beds and buy a complete single mattress and base set, a 7-drawer Scotch chest, a headboard and a 3-drawer bedside cabinet for as little as $979? So call and discuss our custom manufacturing options and local after sales service at Nelson Beds, Nelson's only bedding manufacturer.
Hi there, Julian Toon, Waimea Telecommunications. We install and maintain domestic and commercial satellite TV, UHF Freeview and Mainland TV installations in the Nelson, Tasman regions. We specialise in Panasonic telephone systems and provide communications, Wi-Fi, IT and wiring for internet, fibre, computers and DSL systems. At Waimea Telecommunications, we also provide specialist electronic systems for features such as a security camera you can watch on your TV, visitor alert systems and much more. Improve your security and communication and entertainment today. Call us on Waimea Telecommunications on 021 472297, ytel.co.nz.
We're the team at JCar, right here in Nelson, 120 Hardy Street. Our shop is full of electronic items,
including security alarm systems, electronic components,
solar and power,
electronics toys,
sound systems, cables and much, much more. JCar.
120 Hardy Street, Nelson.
World War I was a defining period in our history, impacting greatly on the lives of people from the Nelson province. Memories of the First World War is an exhibition which will be displayed in a number of regional venues and is currently on at the Nelson Provincial Museum.
Trans-Pacific Partnership Roadshow is coming to Nelson on Wednesday the 11th of May at Founders Park at 9 a.m. until 12:25 p.m. Registration is required to be able to attend on the link provided.
On behalf of the team here at Mainland Television News, thank you for joining us, and we'll bring you the latest news and events from around the region again tomorrow.
Supporting local content so you can see more of New Zealand on air.
Are you looking for a scooter, walker, wheelchair, baby seats or pushchairs? Then come in and see the Nelson Region Specialist at Mobility for You, 269 Queen Street, Richmond, opposite the library. We have a huge selection of scooters, walkers, wheelchairs and accessories, along with a free booklet guide. We also provide a breakdown service if you ever get a puncture or a flat battery. We have fully equipped service vans to rescue you. Hi, I'm Robin Jordan and I invite you to call in and see the friendly team at Mobility for You, 269 Queen Street, Richmond, opposite the library.
Nelson Tire Center, great prices, great service. Buy your own Bryford trailer, all types, all sizes. See Colin Douglas for your tires and batteries.